Every year, the United States exports roughly 300,000 metric tons of chicken feet to China. In America, these feet are classified as a processing byproduct, scraped off the slaughter line and sold for pennies per pound, mostly destined for rendering plants or landfills. In China, the same feet are marinated, braised, steamed, and served in bamboo baskets at dim sum restaurants under the name Feng Zhao, Phoenix Claws, at prices that rival the finest cuts on the menu. One nation's garbage is another nation's delicacy, and this single, bony, collagen-rich appendage reveals something far deeper than a quirky trade statistic. It reveals that when China and the West look at the same chicken, they do not even agree on which parts are worth eating. To understand how one bird can produce two such radically different culinary worlds, we cannot simply compare recipes or cooking techniques. We have to start with the bird itself, because the chicken sitting in a styrofoam tray in a Chicago Walmart and the chicken hanging by its neck in a Guangzhou wet market are not really the same animal anymore. The modern Western chicken is an engineering marvel. Known commercially as the Cornish Cross, it is the result of decades of intensive selective breeding that began in the 1940s, when American poultry companies realized that chicken could become cheaper than beef or pork if they could accelerate its growth. They succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. A Cornish Cross broiler reaches slaughter weight in just 42 days. That is 6 weeks from egg to shrink-wrapped package. To put this in perspective, a chicken in 1950 took about 84 days to reach half the weight of today's bird. The modern broiler grows so fast that its skeleton often cannot keep up with its muscle mass. Its breast, the single most commercially valuable cut in the Western market, is so disproportionately large that many birds struggle to walk by the end of their short lives. This bird was designed, almost literally, for one purpose: to produce the maximum amount of boneless, skinless breast meat at the lowest possible cost. And it is spectacularly good at that job. The American poultry industry, pioneered by companies like Tyson Foods, perfected a model called vertical integration. Tyson owns the hatcheries, the feed mills, the grow-out farms, and the processing plants. A chicken born into this system never leaves the supply chain. It is hatched, fed, grown, slaughtered, deboned, portioned, packaged, and shipped without ever passing through an independent hand. The result is a protein source so cheap and so abundant that boneless, skinless chicken breast has become the default ingredient of Western fitness culture, hospital cafeterias, fast food chains, and weeknight dinners alike. Now fly to southern China, to the markets of Guangdong province, where chicken is arguably more culturally important than in any other region on earth. Here, the bird that matters is not the broiler. It is the heritage chicken, breeds like the Sanhuang, the Wenchang, or the Qingyuan Ma. These birds take anywhere from 120 to 180 days to reach maturity, 3 to 4 times longer than a Cornish Cross. They are leaner, smaller, and far more muscular. Their skin is thicker, their bones are harder, and their fat is yellow, concentrated around the organs and under the skin, rather than marbled through the breast. Most importantly, they taste profoundly different. Chinese consumers describe the flavor of a heritage chicken as having jiwei, literally, chicken flavor, a deep, savory richness that the fast-grown broiler simply does not possess. This is the foundation of everything that follows. The West built an industry around a bird optimized for the breast. China preserved breeds optimized for flavor, and from that single divergence, 2 completely different butchering and cooking philosophies emerged. Consider the most sacred chicken dish in Cantonese cuisine, white-cut chicken, or bai chia ji. The technique sounds deceptively simple. A whole heritage chicken is lowered into a pot of water, held at precisely 70 degrees Celsius, not boiling, not simmering, but gently poaching. The bird is submerged for 40 minutes, then plunged into ice water to stop the cooking and tighten the skin. It is then removed, rubbed with sesame oil, and placed on a chopping board. Here is where the Western observer would recoil. The cook takes a heavy cleaver and chops straight through the chicken, bones and all, cutting it into uniform rectangular pieces roughly the width of 2 fingers. The bones shatter cleanly, and the marrow remains visible, pink and slightly translucent at the center. In Cantonese tradition, this pink bone is the mark of perfection. It means the meat nearest the bone is barely set, silky and almost custard-like in texture, while the outer flesh is firm and juicy. A Western food safety inspector would call it undercooked. A Cantonese chef would call it flawless. Now compare this to the Western approach. In a typical American kitchen, the chicken breast is the star. It is removed from the bone, stripped of its skin, and cooked as an isolated piece of lean protein. The goal is uniform doneness throughout. No pink, no blood, no visible bone. The chicken is treated less as an animal and more as a blank canvas, a vehicle for sauce, seasoning, or breading. Think of the chicken nugget. In 1983, McDonald's introduced the Chicken McNugget, and it fundamentally changed how the Western world related to poultry. The nugget took mechanically separated chicken, a slurry of meat, skin, and fat stripped from the carcass by machines, molded it into uniform shapes, coated it in batter, and deep-fried it into golden, crispy pieces that bore no resemblance to the animal they came from. It was chicken with the chicken removed. And it was wildly, historically successful. Within 4 weeks of its national launch, McDonald's became the second-largest chicken buyer in the United States. The contrast with Chinese technique could not be sharper. Where the nugget disguises the bird, Chinese cooking celebrates it. Take Hainanese chicken rice, one of the most elegant demonstrations of whole animal cooking in any cuisine. A single chicken is poached whole. The broth from the poaching becomes the soup course. The fat skimmed from the surface is used to cook the rice, infusing every grain with rich chicken flavor. The meat is sliced and served at room temperature, its skin a trembling layer of gelatin over tender flesh. One bird produces 3 distinct components of a complete meal. Nothing is wasted, nothing is disguised, and the identity of the animal is present in every bite. Then there are the feet. The phoenix claws of Cantonese dim sum are not simply boiled and served. Their preparation is a 4-stage process that rivals any classical French technique in complexity. First, the feet are blanched to clean them. Then they are deep-fried at high temperature until the skin blisters and puffs up, creating a honeycomb of tiny air pockets in the dermis. Next, they are braised for hours in a sauce of soy, oyster sauce, fermented black beans, sugar, and garlic, until the collagen in the tendons and joints dissolves into a sticky, trembling jelly. Finally, they are steamed until the bones practically slide out at the touch of a chopstick. The result is a piece of food that has no equivalent in Western cuisine. The skin is soft and gelatinous, the sauce clings to every wrinkle and fold, and the act of eating requires a delicate negotiation of tiny bones, cartilage, and melting collagen. It is a textural experience that the Western palate, trained to expect boneless simplicity, is rarely prepared for. And then there is the silky chicken, the bird that looks like it belongs in a fairy tale. Known in Chinese as the wuguji or black bone chicken, the silky has white, fur-like plumage, jet-black skin, black bones, and dark gray-blue flesh. To a Western consumer encountering one for the first time, it can look almost alien. Silkies are virtually absent from Western supermarkets. But in China, they are prized not primarily as food but as medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine regards the black-bone chicken as a powerful tonic for the blood and the kidneys. It is simmered for hours with goji berries, red dates, astragalus root, and dang gai, producing a rich, dark, intensely savory broth that is prescribed for postpartum recovery, anemia, and general debility. The same bird that the West finds strange, China places at the center of its healing tradition. But here is the twist that neither side saw coming. The very chickens that each civilization created, in its own image, are now undermining the other's values. The Western broiler, engineered for breast meat, has developed a condition that the industry calls woody breast syndrome. Because the bird grows so fast, the muscle fibers in its enormous breast do not develop properly. The meat becomes tough, stringy, and striated with hard white bands, a texture that consumers describe as woody or rubbery. Studies estimate that up to 30% of commercially raised broilers now exhibit some degree of this condition. The bird designed for perfection is producing imperfect meat. Meanwhile, in China, the heritage breeds that generations of cooks depended on for their deep chicken flavor are disappearing. Industrial farming has arrived in China with the same relentless logic that transformed American poultry. Factory farms outside Shandong and Henan now raise Cornish Cross broilers on the exact same timeline as their American counterparts. 42 days, boneless processing, vacuum sealed for export. Young Chinese consumers, raised on fast food and convenience, increasingly choose cheap, fast-grown chicken over the expensive, slow-raised heritage birds their grandparents swore by. Hundreds of indigenous Chinese chicken breeds are now classified as threatened or declining. Each system, in perfecting its own vision of the ideal chicken, is quietly destroying something irreplaceable. The West sacrificed flavor and animal welfare at the altar of efficiency. China is now sacrificing genetic diversity and culinary tradition at the altar of modernization. Somewhere in rural Guangdong, an elderly woman still walks to the village market at dawn, selects a live Qingyuanma chicken, watches it slaughtered and plucked on the spot, and carries it home in a plastic bag to make white-cut chicken for her family. She pays 3 times the price of a factory-raised bird. And she does it because she can taste the difference. 5,000 kilometers away, in a processing plant in Arkansas, a machine debones 14,000 chicken breasts per hour, each one identical, each one destined for a plastic tray in a supermarket where no customer will ever see a feather, a foot, or a bone. Both of these are answers to the same ancient question: what is the best way to eat a chicken? One answer says strip it down to its most efficient component and produce it as fast as possible. The other says slow down, use everything, and let the bird speak for itself. The question for the next generation is not which answer is right. It is whether either answer can survive the other.